Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast. Now, we interview women who are leading by example and making a change in the world. They're inspiring others with their story. Today, with me, a very special guest. We have founder of I just want to get right, Restorative Sports Therapy. And I want you to share all about your journey and why you are on a mission to really change the mindsets about the inside beauty, matching the outside beauty. We have with us the founder, Gina Perrault. So, Gina, it is such a pleasure to actually be with you today because we've talked many times over the past several months. You are a Woman of Inspiration 2020 Top 150 and, a rural leader, actually, just really making waves. And I know when I was trying to reach you and send a box out to you in the middle of Alberta, you're like, it's hard to get a hold of you. But so these are precious times. And I just want to say your story is so inspiring. I get goosebumps every time I think about what these past few months have been like for you. So I think I'd like to start there. COVID hit, the world changed for everybody, but in your world, it certainly changed a whole lot more and it inspired some great big shifts. So welcome, Gina. What was that big shift for you in 2020?
Well, first of all, thank you, Monica, for all of this and for kind of this quest of seeing women, hearing women, and holding space for them. So it's been an honor to be a part of this journey. I think going through the whole Women of Inspiration process this year has really brought forth clarity, understanding, and has really caused me to take note and reflect on what I'm doing and why. So without this opportunity, I think you just kind of coast through, but being able to really kind of hone in on where your craft is, that was really special. So thanks for creating these opportunities for women. Yeah, you're right. 2020 was a really big year for us. We opened up the new physical location of Restorative Sports Therapy. So we got into this brand new building that I'm sitting in now, and then COVID hits, and within, we were just jamming in this business. It was just so busy, and it was full, and it was great. And then COVID hits, we shut down. And then for myself personally, during that first 4 days, I was like, okay, well, how do I support my team? What kind of innovation are we going to be doing? How do we support our community? How do we go online? How do we bring telehealth and physiotherapy to basically our community so they don't feel like left with their health? And then at day 6 of being closed down, I had a call from my doctor saying that I had lymphoma. And so that then shifted. And, as a business owner, you think, and you're online and you're hearing like, now's the time to get online. And now is not the time to sit back with your business. And here I was getting this cancer diagnosis and then thinking, how do I process all of this? How do I not leave my community that I treat, but then how do I handle this? So I had found out that I was diagnosed with a rare but kind of more common cancer called BIA-ALCL, and it was a cancer directly related to the breast implants that I decided to get 13 years ago. And I had no really outlying signs of cancer that I didn't think of at that time. But you know what, I did for the past 3 years suffer with some symptoms that I just kind of thought, I'm a mom of a 3 and a 6-year-old. I'm building a business. Yes, I'm exhausted. Yes, I'm tired. I sleep for 12 hours a night and I couldn't really feel recharged. So it was such a roller coaster of like, oh my gosh, what is this now? Within 5 days after that, I'm in the Tom Baker getting a PET scan to see if cancer has metastasized. And then 5 days after that, I'm in the hospital during the height of the pandemic, without my husband, without any support, going through total explantation and removal of everything. And I literally did then spend the next 5 weeks just healing kind of physically and emotionally from that.
I am sending you, I'm reaching out and giving you, like, I'm Misty. I'm just reaching out and giving you a big hug because I can't even imagine being in the hospital, receiving this news. There's COVID cases coming up. So you're displaced from your family. You've got the COVID, and how you're going to manage through that. And then just trying to digest what this all means for you and your family and your body. I guess there's a couple questions that I have, and I'm sure that as women are sitting there, going for their walks, listen to the podcast, kind of tuning in at work on their breaks, are now going to press pause and focus 100% here. But you said that, you were just feeling a little unwell, but nothing unusual. I want you to really go back to, if you can you, when did you start feeling unwell? And really what were some of those symptoms so that the listeners that are listening in here today can go, "Ah, I need to get checked." And so first, what were the symptoms? And secondly, what was that? I think I need to get that checked. What was that moment that you knew something just wasn't right?
So what happened is that I work out a lot, and I was at my local CrossFit gym, and I was doing one of the workouts of the CrossFit Open, and I was doing this like heavy clean and jerk. And I immediately started to feel, I had a sharp pain underneath my right breast. And then, just me knowing the anatomy, I kind of thought, I either kind of strained my serratus anterior, or maybe I ruptured the capsule of my implant, and it really hurt. I had to stop my workout. And then over the course of the next 3 months, I really couldn't lie on that side anymore. I couldn't lie on my stomach. It was very sore to touch. And I had said to my husband, I'm like, I'm so over these. Like, I just want to be athletic. I just want to get them out. I don't have to worry about getting an augmentation. I don't want to have to worry about changing things. What I thought I needed when I was 28, I'm over that. I don't really need it anymore. And then I was on course in Edmonton for a back pain seminar, and we had to lay on the floor on our stomach, and I couldn't. And he was just in so much pain. So I went back to my girlfriend's house who I was staying with, and I lifted up my shirt, and I'm like, hey, does something look different here? And one of my breasts was a lot bigger than my other one. And that kind of just started this whole myriad of research into implants and getting them out. And I went to a plastic surgeon here in our city, and I said, hey, I think I ruptured my capsule. What are my options? And he was very kind of blunt, and he said, well, you can get them out, but you'll hate it because you have nothing. And women, you'll just hate how you look. Secondly, you can get them redone, but smaller. And then thirdly, you can do, you can get them out, wait for a year, and then get them redone. And I thought, man, like, and then he kind of said too, he was like, you know what, you really should be protecting your investment, and you shouldn't be working out and lifting heavy anyways. And I thought, man, I was never under that impression when I got them, and really what was and what wasn't. So then I started doing research of explants and the removal, because you don't see pictures of that. And I would be lying if I said that I wasn't worried about that. Like, what was I going to look like afterwards? And there really is no pictures to show women what your breasts look like after removing explants and what to expect emotionally from that. We live such in a curated environment or media platform of what women should look like. So that was a big thing too. And as I was doing this research for this, I came across that the Health Canada had actually recalled my implants. And I had never gotten a notice from the doctor who did it. I had never gotten a notice from the breast implant company. And so I made a call to my family doctor, and he said, well, let's send you for an ultrasound. And I just said, I just want to get them out. And then when I went for an ultrasound, the radiologist said, came in the room right away, and he said, you have a considerable amount of fluid around this implant. We need to aspirate some of the fluid and send it off to cytology. And then that was at 6 days later, I got the report back saying that I had lymphoma. So blew my mind. And when I look back, the symptoms, you know, I'm 42. And so I had night sweats for 3 years. And basically, since I had my last daughter, she's 3, I had kind of night sweats every night for 3 years. So I just kind of thought, I'm perimenopausal. And then I had extreme fatigue that was just getting worse and worse. I just would say to my girlfriends, like, I'm trying to get so much sleep. I'm eating well. I'm trying to hit my workouts, and I just had no oomph. I would go to my bed with my kids at 8:30 at night, and I would sleep until 7. I would never really felt well rested. So when I did the research on BIA, ALCL, this type of cancer, no woman really had the typical cancer signs and symptoms. But most of them did have night sweats. Most of them did have an episode of sharp pain with swelling and extreme fatigue, which when you think of being 42 and kind of getting into a hormone change, who doesn't have some night sweats, who doesn't have extreme fatigue? When you're trying to start a business, you have a 3 and a 6-year-old, my friends would be just like, Gina, what do you expect? Like, you're building your business, you have young kids. So that's kind of really how it all happened. So there's really no answers to that, except for me to say to women, if you have implants, to check them. And the doctors should be telling you to routinely check them throughout the course of the years, and they're not a forever thing. When we get in true informed consent with this, it's not a one-time deal. You will have reaugmentation, and what does that look like? And if there are adverse effects, are you ready emotionally to have them out? And there's this conversation that needs to be said that if you're not okay with how that's going to look on the other side, then maybe you need to go back and do some work on the self-love stuff and what do you really need before you make this decision. And once you're okay with before and after, and if you need them, if you're not, then you go ahead and make that decision.
That is a whole lot to absorb, because this is one of the very first conversations that I have had with somebody who has experienced that, but not the first conversation with women who have implants like myself.
Right.
We're like, what were we thinking when we were in our early 20s? It was just beauty. And it was like, I always say that they attracted the wrong men. Really, like, what on earth were we thinking, and what message are we sending to our young girls? And so that is actually a conversation I was having with one of my girlfriends this summer, who was part of, a team of girls that we all did. And, it wasn't like she did it because I did. We all did it for different reasons, but it's a conversation of, like, really, do we really want, like, we're confident in our bodies, we're confident in our minds, we're growing, like we've got, 20 plus more years on us since that happened. And, is it now time to, number one, just go back to natural anymore? And I just had a conversation with my doctor just last week about that. And she says, if everything looks good, it's probably better that you just leave it as it is, because everything is growing. All your muscle and your tissue has all been so fused together that doing it without a need to do it might not be the best decision, but it's always up to you. So let's, we'll discuss that. So I'm really curious about the whole, process, and like, how do you feel now? I mean, you've had March so it was April when you had your surgery? 'Cause I
I
imagine it
had
was
it.
soon. Did they waste any time? Did they get you in there right away? Tell us about that experience.
I had my surgery on March 31st. It was probably the most painful thing I'd gone through. Getting them is one thing, that's easy breezy. You're up the next day and you're walking around. Getting them out with a true explant, and because it was cancer surgery at that time, and just the very huge area that they had to take. So they had to be very careful to not rupture the capsule because the cancer was in the fluid around the implant itself. So you rupture the capsule and then that cancerous tissue gets in the body. And that, I think that's why I thank to God that I didn't go with that first plastic surgeon who just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, saying you can get them out, but you're going to hate how you look. I thought, wow, talk about such just making a judgment on women, that we couldn't be truly satisfied with how we look without them. So the surgery itself, I mean, they scrape part of your ribs, they take tissue of your pec major, your pec minor, some of your serratus. So it was a huge explant. So I wasn't expecting the amount of discomfort that I had afterwards. And you know, I'm in pretty good shape. So coming out of surgery, I thought, well, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm pretty healthy. It shouldn't be that bad. But I literally was on my backside for about 5 weeks and using heavy pain meds for a good week and a half just to move around. So yeah, the whole process on that, how do I feel now? Free. I feel like I've never felt so at home in my body. And there's a coming back to yourself with that. I love how clothes fit me better. I love how I feel working out and moving. I feel like I can have this big chest expansion breath now. But, you know, there's moments of standing in front of the mirror and seeing, you know, major scars where everything's removed and you think, ugh, you know, it's your battle wounds, but you really have to kind of soften to that. And I think have compassion and forgiveness a little bit to yourself about, you know, you make choices when you're young, but I don't really think those conversations are had on the consequences of those choices. And you know what?
Yep.
So I'm really not sure why we're not having those conversations in that first doctor's office about what can happen down the road. And, you know, like I said, not all breast implants cause cancer, not all are bad, but it's really having that true informed consent about, you know, this is a big deal. Getting an implant device into your body and going through this is a really big deal. And I think sometimes because it's so common, it's not a big deal, but it should be considered as a big deal.
And so what about conversations with young women, you know, educating young women and, you know, like real life stories about why the choice was made, how you feel during that process, and sort of the truth and reality of what might happen to you. You know, I think those are all great conversations to be having with young girls. I mean, sooner than 20, to be honest with you, sooner than 20. As you know, maybe 18 years old when they can actually make decisions for themselves and without their parents' approval, I think would be a really great starting point, maybe even younger, you know, so they're aware of those things. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, Monica, there's no real coffee table magazines anymore. It's the totem that, you know, kids have in their hands, and the new magazine is Instagram and scrolling through and seeing this very curated, filtered environment and how we can manipulate our own pictures. And the big fear of that is when youth take their own picture and start manipulating themselves to compare themselves to a different, better version of themselves versus, you know, this comparison of someone else. You know, we take this picture into our hairdresser and say, well, I want my hair like that. now we have these auto like body tunes and different apps that they can kind of create this with themselves, and it can be kind of a dangerous tool to have with our youth. And I do a bit of mentorship with a local non-for-profit here in Okotoks called the Orenda Society, and the space that I'm in is their space. So it's in the basement of the Restorative Sports Therapy building, and it's this group where youth come together, and we mentor them through empowerment and movement and self-reflection and giving them tools. And getting this diagnosis was, at first, I went through a huge shame with it, because here I am in the medical profession. I have a daughter, that's 2 daughters, 3 and 6, and I mentor youth. And I've gotten cancer from all, and I would be lying if I say I didn't get breast implants 13 years ago out of vanity, right? And so it was a very big pill to swallow for that, and for me to come out and share my story with youth, but really with that becomes very vulnerable and empowering, and for them having to know someone who's gone through this, and then it becomes this self-reflection of, do I need it? Is it necessary? Who's benefiting it from me getting this? And this critical thinking process through it. So I, unknowingly became a bit of an advocate for, women coming into this thought of maybe their ideal bodies may not be their best bodies. And this year at Restorative, we started doing women's seminars on exactly that, about living for your now, and how do we navigate that, and how our ideal body may not necessarily be our best body, and what that looks like, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, it really sounds to me like so much personal strength has actually, it looks as though you've stepped into your personal strength and power. Would you say that this process has strengthened you as you say it was a tough pill to swallow, but looking back now and where you are today, and sort of your confidence as a woman, as a mom, as an advocate, was it worth that experience? I mean, there's some people that can never have the courage to share, right? And they keep it inside them. And what I would really love for you to share is how you've empowered that voice within you to help and serve others.
I think it all starts with the conversation and connection, and I've definitely learned not to be afraid of giving my own personal story out, and to not be afraid of judgment, which I was at the beginning, because really we all know that judgment sometimes comes from the projections of the other person and through their lens and their experience, what they're seeing us. But to have those very real conversations with the youth, with the other women that I treat, and really it's coming again back to yourself of what's best for you. No one can make that decision. So without a doubt, I mean, as horrible as it was to go through, yeah, it's definitely made me a lot stronger in who I am. And again, it's given me a bit of a different platform and a voice to kind of speak from, in order to educate and empower women. And I also think dads who hear these stories, there's a different conversation that they have with their son about. So it's important with men to hear these stories too, and to have conversations with their sons, with their wives, and what that means as far as, for beauty standards and our expectations of what we think we need to see.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think that is incredibly powerful, because this is not just a conversation between women. It's just about bringing awareness to the bigger issue, which is, being comfortable in our own skin, owning our voice, loving who we are, is so powerful. And I want to go back to, at 12 years old, I want to go back to you at 12, and then kind of how you decided to sort of venture into, a career in the health business. So let's go back to your 12. Do you remember what you wanted to be when you were 12?
Yeah, I was talking about that with a colleague of mine, and I wanted to be a secretary. I loved new stationery, new pens, new notebooks. I loved it. And then, going through this reflection, it was, I think God had a different plan for me with that. And my whole story, I think, has, well, the quote that you asked us to kind of reflect on quotes, and my favorite quote is, everything that you're going through is preparing you for what you've asked for. And that's really kind of presented itself, even though it's kind of went through this messy process of having cancer. But growing up from a young age, I was teased very much. I had body discrimination of being fat, of being a larger girl. I was very athletic, very sporty. I had an injury in grade 10. I had my first encounter with a physiotherapist. She was super cool. I wasn't that great in school, kind of got passed off as a kid who just, wasn't really worth the efforts of putting time into it. My parents encouraged me to go to post-secondary education. That's where I really found my love for learning. I had met 3 people who changed the course of my life, who really truly supported me in what I was doing. And then it just kind of shifted. I started to kind of really believe in my capabilities, how smart I was. And then, I did 1 degree at University of Lethbridge in kinesiology and neuroscience. And then I did another degree at U of A for physiotherapy. I loved physiotherapy since the moment I started it. I don't think I've ever woken up once in my career saying, crap, I've got to go to work. I can't wait. It's my passion. I wouldn't change it. I had worked in sports clinics for 15 years, and then I decided to take the leap of faith and create this vision, or my own space. And that came from kind of the traditional model of physiotherapy that we see now, a new patient coming in every 15 minutes. It's very quick. And I started just realizing that I was treating people, but I wasn't seeing people, if that makes sense. And working downtown in corporate oil and gas, I came to realize that I was treating more stress than anything. And to be able to have real conversations with people on my treatment table became something that I just truly felt was missing. It wasn't just a body I was treating a person. And then through that, I had my 2 daughters. I was working part-time downtown, and my boss at the time had at one point called me the weakest link on the team because I was a working mom. I could only work 3 days a week, and I thought, man, I'm really trying to find this balance of fulfilling my passion of serving people, but yet being a mom. So then I remember when I was 40, I was driving home. I called my husband and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to start Restorative. And he said, okay. I worked out of my basement treating people for a year, getting a clientele, building relationships. The beautiful thing of it, Monica, is, I really did no advertising with it. It was just all word of mouth referrals of people coming in and saying, I've never had physio before like this. And it truly was sitting down with people one-on-one for 30 minutes and seeing them and hearing them and meeting them where they were at that season of their life. So then I said to our house was becoming very busy. I said to my husband, can you build me a building? Because he's a carpenter. And so we took on this big project of building restorative sports therapy, this beautiful building that has a movement studio in it and a clinical practice, because we we want people to find strength in movement. We also have a business mantra that we encourage people to move their mood, whatever that looks like for them. And then it was also part of the plan is to team up with our community partners of the Orenda Society and to create this space for youth to come in as well. Restorative believes in bridging the mind-body connection through finding strength and movement. And so we really are, my team shows up daily with that in mind. So I've been really kind of blessed with who's with me. And probably the most important thing on this journey has been creating this culture that my team believes in and invests in, and is probably a large part of the success of where we are today.
And I'm going to go back to the naysayers that said, oh, a working mom, she's the weakest link. Let's talk about the degrees, the dedication, the power, and what you've created in 3 years. I would love to just, I hope they're listening right now. I know we're going to post on LinkedIn. Please tag them. And then come in for a restorative health session with you. And, you know, and I think it's really important, and it's very, very important to talk about all of these, you know, opportunities. And, you know, as a woman, we do juggle a lot, but we are more, we show up, we're committed, we're dedicated, and never the weakest link. We're always the best link. But people have to open up their eyes to see past that that out of office sign, because all of the women that I know will put in, you know, say I've got a doctor's appointment or I've got a child, and they might take a half an hour, but they will put in 2 hours back in, right? So you know, I just really think we need to start talking a little bit more of that. And so thank you for bringing that up, because you are such a powerhouse. I just get this deep sense of, you know, people listening going, I'm going to look up her business because I really need her. I need her in my world right now, because the way that you care for people is truly changing lives. And I don't think that somebody walking into your facility walks into it whole, but they certainly leave whole. And I'm really excited to have you actually part of our 100 Women of Inspiration book. And then the 2021 roadshow that goes across Canada. And, you know, we haven't talked about this, but we are just launching in January our peer-to-peer jams and role model talks for our youth, and sort of opening that up in an online platform for young women to learn from role models like yourself, the career paths and life lessons and Q&A, which is really important. So as well as learning from other girls that are, you know, just crushing it and have some good things to share in leadership. So wow, I am just loving this entire podcast with you. I hope that our listeners today have been really enlightened by your strength, by your passion, by your courage, your grit, and your authenticity. I want to say you ooze authenticity. You really I said, what are your three words that best describe you? And what you had said was leader, advocate, and resilient. And I have to say check, check, and check. We're so proud to be on this journey with you, Gina, and supporting you and sharing your message. Before we leave, this is a Woman of Inspiration podcast. And who is a woman of inspiration in your world?
You know what? I have many. In order to pick one, that's a really hard thing to do. You know, when you're going through life, and this is like the message to the youth, you get so caught up with your current tribe at that stage of your life. And then as you age, you really come into different women who are strong and who inspire you and are shift makers, and they influence you. Do I have one? No, I have many. The women that sit beside me on a day-to-day basis, I choose them purposefully because they're better at me than something or they're teaching me. I'm open to learn from them. I mean, I could name so many here. I mean, there's Jamie Conroy, the founder of the Arenda Society. There's my sister who is so full of wisdom and grace and teaches me so many things. So I think it's hard to put just on one, except to be open to look at all of the women who surround you and the gifts that they teach you, and really be open to hearing what they have to offer. Is really the biggest part of it. I don't necessarily have one woman that comes to mind. It's more of the many women that sit beside me that influence me and encourage and support me.
Amazing. I think that's a beautiful way to articulate women of inspiration, because there are everyday heroes that rub shoulders with us every single day.
Yeah. And it's usually the simple things too, right? Like it's the women who are doing the small things sometimes that aren't getting the recognition for are some of the biggest influencers out there. And it's to being open to really sit and show up and see someone when you're having a conversation or building connections.
Preach, 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 my friend. I love it. And that's exactly why you are 2020 top 150 across Canada Woman of Inspiration. For those listeners that are just want a reminder, how can they get a hold of you, Gina? How can they learn more about all of your incredible work that you're doing in your community? And how would they be able to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we're online at restorativesportstherapy.com. We're also on Instagram at Restorative Sports Therapy. Same with Facebook. Those are our three major platforms. We've got big things coming up this year. 2020 has given us a platform to go a little bit more globally and online. So we're really proud of some of the women-specific programs that we're starting to offer to support women going through perimenopause and menopause, and how to, live further now. Your best body may not be your ideal body. So those are our three major platforms. We're just outside of Okotoks on our acreage. We have this beautiful building outside on our acreage that when you kind of come out of the city, it's just this really natural place where healing takes place.
Beautiful. And if there was just a couple nuggets of wisdom that we can leave our listeners with today, I know that, a new year, 2021 is just around the corner. We're just weeks away from saying goodbye to 2020 and really welcoming all the abundance out of 2021. So how are you looking forward into the new year? And if you were to help guide somebody, going through their process right now and trying to get stuck and get excited for 2020, what words of encouragement would you give them?
Stay grounded in your vision and your passion. And your passion really does fuel your purpose. And continue to come back through that, no matter how many hurdles that you're going through. Is continue to sit with yourself, find silence, come back to really what moves and stays true to you, and that shifts, and that may have shifts. Allow that to happen. But I think the biggest thing is just to stay true to what feels right. And I think when you operate from that place, there is an abundance really to come your way. Our word for 2021 is rise. It's to rise above all of this. There's nothing but going up from here. So yeah, we're really excited about it. 2020 is a great year for overcoming hurdles and being resilient and experiencing that friction that causes growth.
Beautifully said. I look forward to rising with you in 2021, Gina. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that was the founder of the Restorative Sports Therapy out of Okotoks, Alberta. And Gina, thank you so much for a authentic, wonderful podcast. I look forward to the journey as part of our 100 Women of Inspiration book. So watch for that, everyone tuning in, and we'll have more discussions. I think that there's so many layers of this conversation that will help serve women locally, nationally, and globally. So thank you so much, Gina. I look forward to the journey ahead, and thank you, listeners. If you loved this segment of the podcast, I would encourage you to please share it. There's some important information that Gina has shared today, relevant to, I would say, every woman needs to hear this, because whether they experienced it, they may know somebody that needs to hear this information as well. And don't keep it a secret from the men, because we have young boys to raise as great leaders and to help sort of support women, making a difference in the world. So thank you, Gina, today. And I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks, Monica. Thank you for everything.